There are nights that feel like memories, even when they've never happened. Nights when the wind moves softly through the trees, and the stars seem to whisper something only your heart can hear. Tonight is one of those nights. Somewhere beyond the noise of the waking world, in a valley untouched by time, a lone knight sits beside a fire. The light flickers gently against his armor, and for the first time in a long, long while, he isn't fighting anything. He isn't running from anything. He's simply breathing, and the world, for once, is breathing with him. The stars stretched endlessly above the quiet valley, shimmering like 1,000 dreams stitched together across the dark velvet of night. The world was still, and in that stillness sat a lone knight beside his campfire, the faint crackle of burning with the only sound echoing through the silence. The fire cast soft golden light upon his armor, not the kind of light that blinds, but the kind that gently breathes warmth into cold metal, making it glow like amber beneath the heavens. He sat quietly, his back against a smooth rock, the weight of his sword resting beside him, untouched for hours. There was no danger tonight, no quest to chase, no shadow to slay. For once, he was free, free from duty, from noise, from the restless beating of battle drums. All that remained was peace, soft and endless, like the calm after a long storm. The forest around him whispered in slow rhythm, the leaves rustling with the wind, the grass bowing softly as if to greet the night. Somewhere in the distance, an owl sang its lonely hymn, and a faint stream murmured secrets to the stones along its bed. Every sound, every breath of air, seemed to cradle the night in a lullaby woven by nature itself. He leaned his head back and closed his eyes, breathing deeply. The cool air filled his lungs with the scent of earth and rain, with smoke and pine. It was the scent of home, not the kind made of walls and roofs, but the one that lives in the open air, under skies too vast to hold. He smiled faintly, as if remembering something lost long ago. Maybe it was a voice, a face, or just a feeling, something soft and far away, tucked deep inside his memory like a page in an old book. The fire flickered and danced, painting shapes upon the night's closed eyelids. In its glow, the world seemed alive, each ember a tiny sun, each spark a fleeting thought. He opened his eyes again, watching the flames rise and fall, their rhythm slow and hypnotic. It reminded him of the sea, how waves come and go, each one whispering a different story before melting into the next. Tonight, the knight felt no need for armor or strength. The world around him was kind. It didn't demand heroism, it only asked for stillness. He loosened his cloak, letting the warmth of the fire kiss his hands. He stretched his fingers toward it, feeling life hum softly through them, the same life that ran through every tree, every blade of grass, every star above. In that moment, he was not a warrior, not a wanderer, not even a man bound by time. He was simply part of the night, a quiet breath in the endless song of existence. The sky deepened, turning shades of midnight blue and silver. Stars shimmered brighter, like old friends gathering to keep him company. One fell, a streak of light carving through the heavens, and the knight watched it fade, a small smile touching his lips. He thought of wishes, of how long ago he might have made one. Perhaps it was for peace like this. He reached for a small wooden cup near the fire, filled with warm tea brewed from forest herbs. The taste was faintly sweet, with hints of mint and something earthy. He drank slowly, each sip melting the cold from his chest. Around him, fireflies began to appear, tiny floating lanterns weaving in and out of the shadows. They glowed in gentle rhythm, like the heartbeat of the forest. The knight lowered his cup and let his gaze wander to the sky again. The moon had risen higher, soft and pale, a guardian watching over him. Its light touched the river nearby, turning its surface into liquid silver. The gentle trickling of water added another layer to the knight's melody. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, not the battles or the distances, but the quiet spaces between them. The moments when he had walked alone through empty fields, when the only sound was his own footsteps and the whisper of wind through his hair. Those were the moments that stayed with him, more than any victory or crown. He picked up a small stone and rolled it between his fingers, its surface smooth and cool. "Everything changes," he murmured to himself, his voice soft as the night air. "But some things remain." The fire crackled in response, a single spark leaping upward before disappearing into the dark. In that simple moment, the knight realized something. Peace isn't something you find on the road or win in a fight. It's something that waits for you when you stop searching. It's always been there, hidden in the quiet places of the world, waiting for you to sit down and listen. He smiled again, a little deeper this time. The kind of smile that comes not from joy, but from rest. From finally letting go. A gentle breeze moved through the valley, carrying the soft fragrance of blooming flowers. Somewhere nearby, a nightingale began to sing, her song slow, clear, and heartbreakingly beautiful. It echoed across the trees, reaching the night like a voice from another time. He remembered a story once told by an old bard in a quiet tavern about how nightingales sing not for others to hear, but to remind the stars they're not alone. The knight thought about that as the song drifted through the air. Perhaps, in his own silence, he too was reminding the stars of something, that even a lone soul, resting by a fire, is part of their great story. The flames began to die down, their light softening into a faint orange glow. Shadows stretched long and deep, wrapping around him like a blanket. The knight lay down slowly upon the earth, the ground beneath him cool but comforting. He could feel the heartbeat of the land, steady, ancient, alive. He looked up one last time at the sky, a sky full of memories, of worlds unseen and dreams unspoken. His eyes grew heavy, his breath deep and slow. The fire whispered beside him, the wind hummed through the leaves, and the stars, distant and bright, watched over him as sleep began to take him gently. The world didn't fade, it softened. Every sound became distant, every thought dissolved into peace. The night drifted deeper and deeper into dreams, his soul floating through the endless sky, carried by the song of the earth. And in that timeless stillness, between wakefulness and dream, he was home. When dreams feel too real to be dreams, they often begin in silence, the kind that hums softly beneath your heartbeat. Somewhere between the waking world and the quiet pull of sleep, the night still breathes, his story stretching beyond the stars. The fire of the night has dimmed, but its warmth remains, glowing deep within him like a secret light. The valley sleeps, yet the world itself seems to listen, waiting to see what dawn will bring. The first light of morning had not yet touched the land. The world still rested beneath the dark sky, wrapped in its blanket of quiet dreams. The night stirred softly, his eyes fluttering open to the faint glow of embers beside him. For a moment he didn't move. The peace of the night still lingered, clinging to him like a gentle mist. He could hear the slow rhythm of the earth, the soft murmur of the stream, the rustle of distant leaves, the faint hum of life awakening. Each sound carried the memory of stillness, the kind that soothes rather than stirs. He breathed in, and it felt like breathing in the soul of the world. The campfire had almost faded, but its scent remained in the air, a mix of pine smoke and wild herbs. The knight reached forward and stirred the ashes gently, uncovering a few glowing coals. He smiled quietly and placed a small twig upon them. The fire sighed, hesitated, and then bloomed back to life, a fragile flame rising once more into the dawnless dark. He warmed his hands by the small light, watching it flicker against his gauntlets. In the trembling glow, the metal looked alive, like liquid gold. He thought about how something so simple, a little fire, a quiet breath, a moment alone, could hold more meaning than a lifetime of battles. Once, he had dreamed of crowns and legends. He had sought honor, victory, and songs sung in his name. But somewhere along the road, those dreams had begun to fade, not because they were lost, but because he had found something gentler, something truer. Peace had become the song he wanted to hear. He rose slowly to his feet. The air was cool, the kind of cool that feels alive, brushing softly against his skin like the memory of rain. He looked toward the horizon. The edge of the world was beginning to glow, faintly, almost shyly, as if the sun were still deciding whether to rise. He walked toward the river, each step sinking slightly into the dew-covered grass. The water shimmered faintly in the half-light, a mirror for the sky above. He knelt beside it, cupping his hands and taking a slow drink. The water was cold, but it carried a sweetness that touched the core of him. He looked at his reflection in the rippling surface, the face of a man who had seen much, who had carried both sorrow and strength. But now, the lines of weariness seemed softer. The years felt lighter. There was something new in his eyes, or perhaps something ancient he had finally remembered. Behind him, the fire crackled gently, still alive, still waiting. He turned and walked back, the hem of his cloak brushing the grass, catching drops of dew that sparkled like small stars. As he sat down once more, a small bird landed nearby, tilting its head curiously at him. It was no larger than his palm, with feathers the color of morning gold. "Good morning, little one," the knight murmured, his voice barely more than a whisper. The bird hopped closer, fearless, then chirped once, a sound so pure it seemed to melt into the wind. The knight smiled softly. "You're early. Or perhaps I'm late." The bird fluttered away, disappearing into the trees as the first light of dawn began to stretch across the sky. Slowly, the valley changed, shadows softened, colors deepened, and the world began to breathe again. The river gleamed silver, the mountains turned soft shades of lavender, and the mist lifted from the grass like a dream leaving the mind of morning. The knight watched it all unfold in silence. There was no grand sound to announce the day, only the quiet grace of the world waking up. It reminded him of a truth he had once heard from a wise traveler. Not every sunrise needs an audience. Some are meant for the sky alone. He understood that now. The most beautiful things rarely need to be seen, they only need to be felt. He stood and stretched his arms, feeling the pull of his muscles and the whisper of his armor. He packed away his few belongings, his cup, his blanket, his worn leather pouch of herbs. The sword he left where it was for a moment longer. It stood beside the fire, its blade catching the first golden threads of morning. For years, it had been his companion, his defense, his burden. But now, it felt like something from another life, a life made of noise and duty. He placed a hand on its hilt, not with the grip of a warrior, but with a touch of gratitude. "Rest, my friend," he whispered. "We've done enough." He sheathed the blade gently and tied it to his back. Then, he turned toward the rising sun. The valley opened before him, vast, silent, and golden. It was a place where time itself seemed to sleep, where every sound was soft and every color glowed with warmth. As he began to walk, each step left a faint mark in the morning grass, but the wind followed, erasing them gently. It was as if the world wanted him to keep no trace, to travel light, to move freely. He followed a narrow path that wound through tall trees. Their leaves shimmered like emeralds in the sunlight. Birds called softly above him, their songs blending with the hum of the forest. The ground beneath his boots was cool and firm, scattered with petals fallen from unseen flowers. For a long time, he walked without thinking, letting his mind drift the way clouds drift across the sky. The forest around him felt alive, not watching him, but walking with him. Every sound, every breeze, every glimmer of light between the branches seemed to speak the same language. "You are safe here." The knight reached a clearing where the trees parted, revealing a meadow bathed in gold. Wildflowers swayed gently in the wind, their colors bright and full of life, crimson, violet, and pale blue. Bees floated lazily from bloom to bloom. The air shimmered faintly with warmth. He sat down among the flowers, laying his sword beside him. A soft laugh escaped him, not of amusement, but of wonder. How strange it was, he thought, that peace could be this simple, that the world could be so beautiful when you finally stopped trying to control it. He lay back in the grass, watching the clouds drift across the sky. Each one was a shape, a memory, a fleeting dream. He saw mountains, dragons, faces, all changing, all vanishing. And somewhere in that constant change, he found comfort. Time passed gently. Hours melted like snow in sunlight. The knight closed his eyes, and the warmth of the day wrapped around him like a soft blanket. He could hear the world breathing, the low hum of bees, the distant murmur of water, the whisper of the breeze. And then, for the first time in many years, he began to hum. The sound was quiet, deep, and ancient. It wasn't a song of victory or loss. It was a song of life, of the gentle rhythm that connects all things. The forest listened. The sky listened. Even the wind seemed to pause for him. The knight's voice faded softly, carried away by the air, until all that remained was stillness. His eyes drifted open again, and the sun had moved higher, painting the world in warm gold. He smiled, and in that smile lived everything he had learned, everything he had become. He was not lost. He was home, not in a place but in a feeling. Every journey, no matter how far it wanders, eventually leads back to silence. The kind of silence that doesn't mean emptiness but understanding. As the day drifts toward evening and light begins to soften, the knight's footsteps grow slower, his heart lighter. He is no longer searching for rest. He has found it, quietly blooming inside him like a secret flower that's been waiting all along. The sun had begun its slow descent, painting the world in shades of amber and rose. The forest, once bright and alive with song, now whispered in lower tones, like a lullaby for the earth itself. The knight walked along a winding path that led toward the hills, where the air grew cooler and the horizon stretched endlessly, glowing beneath the fading light. Every breath he took felt easier now, like the weight of the years had finally loosened. The sky above him shimmered faintly with golden dust, and the clouds drifted like gentle sails across an ocean of light. Somewhere in the distance, a bell sounded, deep and slow, the kind of sound that feels like it comes not from a tower, but from time itself. The knight followed its echo until he reached the crest of a hill. From there, he could see the world spread out below him, rivers twisting through green valleys, tiny villages tucked between trees, and far beyond, mountains wrapped in mist. The beauty of it struck him with quiet force. He stood there for a long moment, just breathing it in. He thought of all the roads he had taken, the storms he had crossed, the battles fought, the faces remembered and forgotten. They all led to this, a single, still evening beneath a sky too vast to name. He realized that perhaps every step he had ever taken wasn't toward glory or fate, but toward peace. He sat down on the grass, which glowed faintly under the sunset. The warmth of the day still lingered in the earth, and the soft hum of life surrounded him, the flutter of wings, the distant rush of water, the low sigh of wind moving through tall grass. He took off his gloves, placing them beside him, and ran his hands over the ground. It was cool and damp, alive with tiny movements unseen. He could feel the pulse of the land beneath his palms, steady, ancient, forgiving. A single petal drifted past him, carried by the wind. It came to rest upon his knee, trembling softly. The knight smiled, tracing its delicate edge with a finger. "You've come far," he whispered to it, though perhaps he was speaking to himself. The sun sank lower, the colors of the world deepening into quiet gold. The river below turned into a ribbon of light, and the trees became soft silhouettes against the horizon. A flock of birds rose into the air, their wings catching the last fire of the sky. He watched them go, his eyes following until they disappeared into the distance. "Fly well," he murmured. "The world is yours now." Then he leaned back against a smooth stone, folding his hands across his chest. The first stars were beginning to appear, faint and scattered, like thoughts taking shape in the mind of the night. Each one felt familiar, as if he had known them all his life. The wind shifted, carrying with it a faint melody, not from a musician, but from the world itself. The sound of the grass swaying, the rivers whispering, the sky breathing. It was music older than memory, and he listened to it with a quiet heart. He closed his eyes. In the darkness behind them, he saw the faces of those he had loved, some from long ago, some he could no longer name. They smiled, not with sorrow, but with peace. They had all become part of the same great stillness, the same eternal rhythm. A gentle thought passed through him. Everything that lives must rest. Everything that rests becomes part of life again. He opened his eyes to see the first full glow of the moon rising. Its light washed across the hills like silver water. The knight's armor shimmered faintly, no longer harsh or heavy, just a soft reflection of the light above. He unfastened the straps across his chest and set his armor aside, piece by piece. Each clink of metal on the grass sounded like a sigh of release. When he was done, he sat in simple linen, bare to the cool night air. The breeze touched his skin gently, and he felt free in a way he hadn't known in years. He lay down upon the earth and looked to the stars. The constellations glimmered, patterns he had followed once as a young squire, when he believed the sky held the answers to everything. Now he saw them differently, not as guides, but as companions. Each one, a quiet reminder that he was never truly alone. The fireflies returned, glowing faintly between the blades of grass, their light rising and falling in perfect rhythm with his breath. It felt as though the whole world was breathing with him, inhaling peace, exhaling time. He whispered softly to the night, "If I should dream, let it be of this, of light, of wind, of peace." His eyes grew heavy, his thoughts drifting like leaves in a slow river. The stars above blurred into rivers of silver. The hum of the earth deepened until it became something more, not sound, not silence, but the pulse of everything. In that half-world between waking and sleep, he saw himself walking through the valley once more. Only this time, it was endless, bathed in eternal twilight. The river sang, the trees shimmered, and the moon followed him like a guardian. He felt lighter with every step, until he was no longer walking but floating, weightless, free. He passed through memories like they were open doors, faces smiling, voices laughing, moments of warmth and sorrow blending together until they became one soft note, vibrating with love. He reached a vast meadow under the stars. In its center burned a single flame, small, steady, golden. He knelt before it, realizing it was the same fire that had warmed him through the night, the same light that had guided him all his life. He placed his hand above it, and the flame flickered, not to burn, but to welcome. The knight smiled. "Thank you," he whispered, "for the warmth, for the road, for the peace." The flame glowed brighter, and its light expanded outward, filling everything. The sky dissolved into gold, the stars became sparks in the air, and the sound of the world merged into one gentle breath. As the light surrounded him, the knight closed his eyes. His last thought was not of battles or journeys, but of quiet, of how beautiful it felt to rest. And in that endless, serene light, neither dream nor waking, the night became part of the world he had always sought. The grass swayed softly. The river hummed. The stars above shone brighter, as if smiling back at the one who had finally found home. And somewhere in that infinite calm, under a sky that would never end, the night's fire burned forever, not as a blaze, but as a gentle, eternal glow. A light for those who wander, a warmth for those who rest, a story for those who dream.